A warning about the impact of tariffs on Thunder Bay's economy. Good evening and thank you for joining us. While Canada managed to avoid the recent set of global tariffs from U.S. President Donald Trump, the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce warns that existing tariffs on energy, potash, aluminum, steel, and cars will still have a significant impact on our local economy. Chamber President Charlotte Robinson also says many local businesses are concerned about the continued uncertainty. Jessica Clement reports.
The Chamber of Commerce says Canada will still deal with significant tariffs from the United States, including 10% on energy and potash and 25% on steel and aluminum. A 25% auto tariff also came into effect on Thursday. President Charlotte Robinson says even though Thunder Bay isn't directly involved in auto production, we'll still feel a ripple effect.
I do know that there are some businesses in Thunder Bay that while their business maybe directly here in Thunder Bay isn't specifically providing, auto parts to plants, they are in some of their other branches across Ontario very much connected to auto parts and auto plants. So there is definitely a feeling of concern around how that's going to impact overall.
Robinson notes the local business community as a whole is confused, with many unsure of how the impact of tariffs will look like. She explains that global trade is so intertwined, something that's happening in a different country like China or Brazil will still impact the local economy.
Even the businesses that I talked to this morning who maybe are specifically connected to certain supply chains are saying, we still don't know. We're trying to figure out, it's only day 2, right? So I think that's going to be a bit of the next couple of weeks is people trying to figure out what are those impacts and then what is the plan to address those impacts and how can they, mitigate any damage.
Despite it being an anxiety-inducing time in history, Robinson notes there could be a silver lining.
We're going to get through this. We've been through challenges before, and it really speaks to maybe there's some opportunities that we haven't had because of these changes to global markets that we might be able to capitalize on. Things like breaking down internal trade barriers that will now allow, producers here to perhaps open up markets in other provinces that they haven't had before.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
The new proposed location for the city's temporary shelter village is already facing opposition from neighbors next door. The Fort William Road property is owned by the Lakehead Region Conservation Authority. The proposal is up for debate at City Hall on Monday night, and one resident says they're messaging the mayor, councillors, and the LRCA to try to halt the project. Jonathan Wilson has more.
I was shocked that it was going to be there, and I was not happy about it at all.
Brenda LeVacon has rented an apartment for 8 years at this 3-unit residence on Fort William Road. She found out through the media earlier this week that city staff are recommending the LRCA property next door for a new 80 to 100 unit temporary homeless village. LeVacon says she and the other tenants are very opposed to the plan as they fear even more crime at and around their homes.
I have lots of concerns, safety issues, I know that everybody that's homeless isn't, have alcohol, drug, mental issues, but how much percentage of the homeless is the drug, the alcohol, the mental illness issues. So it concerns me having them over there, what it's going to be like.
You said you've already had some issues in this area.
Yes, I have. I've had my window kicked in. I've had a lady that was on something banging down my door. So I don't feel safe even coming out to walk my dog.
I do know that a 8-foot-high privacy fence will be installed to put a buffer between those properties and the village.
The city's encampment response lead, Riley Willinen, says the new proposed site is a good fit because it has enough space for around 100 units and is in reasonable walking distance to services and public transit. And besides a large fence, Willinen says there will be security on site at the village around the clock.
So safety and security is, of course, top of mind, though, for not only the village, but the broader community as well. So there are measures in place that, if council approves, would be implemented. The site will be fenced. There is a camera that's nearby with the Eye on the Street program that has a full view of the site, and there will be staff and security on site 24/7 as well.
Is that in your reassurance?
No, it's not, because what kind of security are they going to have? You see security at grocery stores or whatever, and people just walk out with stuff anyways. Like, so are they going to have the authority to lay the law down?
LeVaycon says her daughter has already sent a letter to the LRCA opposing the plan and is sending emails to the mayor and every city councillor. Wollenden will be asking council to approve the location on Monday night so the city can finalize lease negotiations with the LRCA. The goal is to start construction on the $5 million village by July due to provincial funding deadlines and have the first tenants moved in by October. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Police are setting up speed traps on Onion Lake Road. Constable Tom Armstrong posted a video on social media saying they pulled over 4 vehicles in 40 minutes on Wednesday morning. The drivers were caught going between 90 and 102 kilometers an hour in a 60K zone. This comes after police received many complaints from residents. Here's Armstrong on the serious risks of excessive speeding.
The roads were wet, temperatures were hovering around 0 or below freezing. The tow truck just finished loading up the vehicle here. This driver was charged with speeding for doing 102 in the 60 zone as well as stunt driving. With that, a 14-day vehicle impoundment and a 30-day driver's license suspension. So some serious consequences for speed once you reach those speeds. Never mind the potential for catastrophe. If somebody pulls out, a kid darts out on the road, and you're absolutely unable to stop. The stopping distances, from 60 to 90 or 100 are staggeringly increased, and especially when road conditions are less than ideal, those stopping distances are even greater. So dangerous speeds, and we're going to be continuing doing enforcement here and other areas across the city.
Armstrong assures residents that Thunder Bay Police will continue to address the issue. Premier Doug Ford is visiting parts of central Ontario today, touring areas hit hard by a massive ice storm last week. The visit comes as tens of thousands of people continue to wait for crews to restore power. CTV's Siobhan Morris has the story.
Hydro crews have been at it around the clock, and yet it's been 6 days of disaster-zone streets with down hydro poles, impassable roads, and life in the dark and cold with no power.
One generator already packed it in. I ended up shopping around for another one. I had to drive all the way to Toronto to get a generator.
For some, the process of cleaning up a tangle of branches has begun.
Power came on yesterday afternoon. It's been a long go. A lot of flooded basements and a lot of damage.
Hydro One says some 2 million customers have already had their power restored. But there's a ways to go after a storm the likes of which Ontario hasn't seen in a quarter century.
We had an ice storm, then we had another ice storm. Then our sanitation plant got hit by lightning. I mean, it makes this stuff up.
Meeting with hydro workers and with volunteers at a warming center.
We're just so grateful.
To the tens of thousands of people still without power.
We're going to keep going around the clock until we get everyone up and running.
Hydro One hopes to restore power to most homes and businesses by the end of the weekend.
There will be some people that are going to go into next week. Small rural people or communities or homes down isolated roads. It's going to take a long time.
Some 4,000 hydro workers are on the case, not just from Hydro One, but Toronto Hydro and other parts of Canada too.
Premier has leveraged resources from New Brunswick as far away as Saskatchewan. Hydro-Quebec has been an amazing value add. They're on the ground as we speak.
The damage of this storm likely to be monumental.
It'd be in the hundreds of millions, if not a billion, if you add up every single item.
Even when all the power is restored, the work is far from over.
We're going to have likely a month or two of cleanup afterwards, but our roads crew has been working nonstop.
Though there is a vow to look to do better for whenever the next disaster hits.
We have to look at continuous improvement all the time to improve on our response. But, these people are working hard, really hard.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The Ontario New Democrats have announced their shadow cabinet for the upcoming term in the legislature, and the 2 re-elected members from this region will be back in familiar roles. NDP leader Marit Stiles and her party have 27 MPPs at Queen's Park this time around. All of them have been given a shadow cabinet portfolio. Lise Vaugeois in Thunder Bay Superior North, is once again the shadow minister for seniors and accessibility with responsibility for WSIB and injured workers. And Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa is back as one of the party's 2 deputy leaders. He's also retained his roles as shadow minister for Indigenous and Treaty Relations and for Northern Economic Development and Growth. The legislative session is set to begin on April 14th. Magnus Theater is taking its cast and crew and heading out on tour across northwestern Ontario. Many students in remote and rural communities have never seen live professional theater before, but Magnus intends to change that, starting in Marathon on Monday. Justin Hardy has the story.
Dogs. See you, dogs?
Nix. Tractors and dogs long gone. Ace move, nuke.
Radiant transmitter work fine with solder and batteries. We got a fix on tractors.
Land of Trash is one of 3 plays that Magnus Theater is bringing to young audiences across the region. Each play is geared toward a different age range. The plays will be the first theater experience for many of the youth that attend, according to Theater and Education Director Jordan Blacksell. He says that it was important to make sure each story had an important message.
Land of Trash deals with climate change, Head-Tech kind of focusing on communication and how we kind of breach kind of the language barrier, and the code, which is for our high school students, is again a really relevant play that deals with a lot of issues that our young people are dealing with today. And so the opportunity to take those out into the region and connect with young people about these issues, I just think is super important.
Trees burned and fall?
No. Well, I guess in a way.
The tour covers almost 500,000 square kilometers, reaching as far east and west as Wawa and Kenora, and as far north as Wigamo Lake. The tour will also include a performance in the flying community of Martin Falls. With 3 cast members and not to mention props and set pieces for 3 separate shows, thinking small was crucial when planning, according to Blacksell.
Making sure that everything that we have, all the set, props, costumes, can basically fit down and condense into the back of a van, and we just load up the van, make sure everything fits in nice and smoothly, and then hit the road, and then we unpack at the school, and then pack it all up again and hit the road again to the next venue. So it's about making sure that everything fits.
Did good, Duke. Throw him off me. Found something.
He gets me. He pulls tears from me.
Told you he has powers. I didn't know I could harm her. I didn't mean to.
Stop!
The tour around the region will last 5 weeks, with the final performances back at Magnus Theater on May 8th and 9th. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Oh, what a great initiative that is. And Fiona, I'm sure those performers are hoping that they see a little bit of better weather out on the roads than we've experienced recently with those big storms. Today, though, was a bit of a boring one, which was very nice.
Boring is good.
Boring is
Boring
good.
is
Yes.
good in the spring when
Yeah.
you never know what is heading your way. Boring is kind of nice because Mother Nature has been definitely keeping folks around here guessing. Today, here in the city of Thunder Bay, we topped out with a high of 5 after a low of -8, which is pretty close to normal for this time of year. Thunder Bay should be seeing highs of about 7, but the overnight low is pretty much bang on. And unlike the conditions a couple of days ago, the winds are a lot calmer than they have been. In fact, there were hours when they were completely calm, and then up to about 13 kilometers per hour from the south. That was with mostly cloudy skies, but at least there was no snow falling. If we take a look at what's going on for the last few hours today, pretty calm, as you can see, across much of the region, but there is that second system that's pushing up. It's a bit of an arm of a front out of the Montana region, and it's uneven, it's not well organized, it doesn't have a lot of precipitation to it, but it is just enough to drive people a little bit batty in northwestern Ontario. It has brought a little bit of snow to some areas. Fort Frances had a few periods of flurries. Red Lake had snow in the morning and now mostly cloudy in the afternoon. Temperature-wise, looking pretty consistent, but it didn't start out that way. Red Lake had a low of -9 overnight. Fort Frances, however, temperatures really haven't moved all day since about midnight. It's been fluctuating between 1 and 2 Celsius, so as consistent gets. To the west, to the east, just a little bit warmer at this hour, but again, overnight hours were quite chilly, -7 compared to 1 Celsius in the fort, so there was definitely a difference along the North Shore. And down into Wawa, they're currently at 2, and Sault Ste. Marie at 7, under mostly cloudy skies at this hour, but they did start out with a lot of sunshine, so they saw some sun for part of the day. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we will drop below the freezing mark again, -3 tonight with wind chills of -6. Because it has been so warm during the day today, we've got a 60% chance of precipitation this evening. It could come as rain or it could come as wet flurries. By the time midnight rolls around and we start to drop below the freezing mark, we are expecting a couple centimeters of snow. Just a couple. Not really enough to ruin your training plans as you hit the road with your sneakers on. But this weekend, things are going to be a little bit iffy, and I'll have more details on that later on in the NewsHour.
Okay, thanks a lot, Fiona.